The lawyer's words echoed in that polished Atlanta conference room like a gunshot. And the remainder of Jonathan Carter's estate will go to his wife, Denise Carter. My heart stopped. I knew my dad had money. Our family home, his trucking company, the savings he always talked about like a safety net wrapped around me. But in that moment, sitting in a stiff leather chair while my stepmother smiled a slow, satisfied smile, it was like someone ripped my name out of my whole life. I wasn't just forgotten, I was erased. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever faced betrayal, hit like and subscribe, because what happened next will shock you. I stared at the thick folder on the table. My dad's will, my dad's signature, my dad's life. Somehow, I wasn't in it. Not once. Not as daughter, not as beneficiary. Nothing. My name is Aaliyah. And until that day, I thought I understood what betrayal felt like. I had no idea. Denise sat across from me in a cream blazer that matched the polished marble floors. Her nails were done in a glossy nude, fingers wrapped around a designer purse I knew my dad paid for. She tilted her head, pretending to look sad, but her eyes were dancing. "I'm so sorry, Aaliyah," she murmured, touching her chest. "This is such a shock for all of us." I looked at her, then at the attorney, Mr. Harrison, some probate guy from Buckhead my father trusted. The kind of man who wore cufflinks and never took off his wedding ring, even while shuffling papers that could destroy a life. "There must be a mistake," I said, my voice thin but steady. "My father always told me the house would be in my name. The business, too, eventually. I've been helping him run it since I was 18. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat and pushed his glasses up his nose. "All I can tell you is that this is the last will and testament your father signed. It revokes all prior documents. I understand this is difficult, Ms. Carter." Difficult. Losing your dad to a sudden heart attack at 52 was difficult. Finding out the woman who married him 2 years ago had rewritten your future? That was something else. Let me take you back. I grew up on the southwest side of Atlanta, in a modest but solid brick house with a porch swing and a cracked driveway my dad always said he'd fix. Next summer. My mom died when I was 13, breast cancer. One day she was making pancakes, dancing barefoot in the kitchen. The next, she was a ghost in every room. After that, it was just me and Dad. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man who smelled like motor oil and Old Spice, always coming home with grease on his hands and a tired smile. He ran Carter Logistics, his small trucking company. By the time I was in college, he was finally doing well. New contracts, new trucks, new hope. We didn't have much, but what we had, he built with his own hands. And he always said the same thing. "One day, all this will be yours, baby girl. I'm just holding it till you're ready." Then came Denise. I remember the first time he brought her to Sunday dinner. I was 24, back home after a breakup and trying to save money by working with Dad while I figured out my life. She walked in on high heels and a cloud of perfume, her hair laid and makeup flawless, like she'd stepped out of an Instagram filter. "Laya, this is Denise," Dad said, beaming. "We met at that charity gala downtown. She works in real estate." "Commercial," she corrected with a laugh, offering her hand. "Your dad's underselling me. But I've heard so much about you." Her smile was warm, but something about it didn't reach her eyes. At first I tried. We went shopping together once, and she insisted on buying me a pair of heels I didn't need. She called me sweetheart and baby and complimented my hair. But little cracks started to show. Like the way she'd say, "You still live here?" right in front of my dad. Or, "At your age, I was already on my second property. You don't want to get too comfortable, you know?" Or how she'd always change the subject when Dad and I talked business at dinner. "Babe, can we not talk about trucks all the time?" she'd whine, sliding her hand over his. "Let's talk about that trip to Miami instead." Slowly, I watched my father's life, our life, shift around her. The house got redecorated. The photos on the wall changed. My mom's pictures moved from the hallway to a box in the attic. When I complained, Dad just sighed. Denise is trying to make this place feel like home for her, too, he said. She's not replacing your mom, baby girl. Don't be so hard on her. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be the cool daughter who supported her dad moving on. But every time Denise looked at me, I felt like she was measuring me, weighing me, calculating where I fit. One night, I came home late from checking on one of the trucks and heard voices in the dining room. I paused in the hallway, my key still in my hand. "Cuh, you spoil her too much," Denise was saying, her voice low but sharp. "She's grown, John. She doesn't need to be living here rent-free, dipping into the company whenever she feels like it." "You know that's not fair," Dad replied. His chair creaked. He must have leaned back, defensive. "She works hard. She's helping me keep this thing alive." "She's comfortable," Denise snapped. "Too comfortable. That business, this house, this is our future. She needs to stand on her own 2 feet. You can't coddle her forever." My chest tightened. "She is my daughter," Dad said, each word heavy. "This will always be her home." Silence. Then Denise's tone changed, smooth as silk. "I'm not saying she won't get anything," she said. "I'm just saying, you need to protect what we're building too. Have you even updated your will since Sandra passed? What if something happens to you tomorrow? You know how messy probate can get." I froze. There it was, the word that would come back to haunt me. Will. Dad sighed. "Yeah, Harrison's been on me about that. I'll handle it." "I can help," she offered. "I know people. You don't want some judge deciding who gets what? We need to make sure everything is clear, for both of us." I remember leaning my head against the wall, my fingers numb. Have you ever felt this kind of pain? Knowing people are talking about your future like you're not even in the room? I wish I could say I marched in there and confronted them, told my dad, "Don't you dare let her talk about me like I'm a problem to solve." But I didn't. I just went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and told myself I was overreacting. He would never cut me out. He promised. Then, 6 months later, he died. It was a Tuesday morning. He was on his way to the office when his heart gave out at a stoplight. By the time the ambulance got there, he was gone. The cop who came to the door kept saying, "I'm so sorry for your loss," while Denise crumpled onto the floor, sobbing into her silk robe. The next few weeks blurred into a mix of casseroles from church ladies, funeral home brochures, and relatives I hadn't seen in years, showing up in black suits, asking quiet questions about the business and what happens now. Denise appointed herself queen of everything. She chose the casket, controlled the guest list, even decided which pictures were displayed at the funeral. My mom was nowhere in sight. When I asked about the company, she just smiled tightly. "Your dad trusted me with everything, Aaliyah. We'll talk about it after the will is read. For now, let's just focus on the service, okay?" I felt like a guest at my own father's funeral. And that's how I ended up in that conference room weeks later, watching my entire life get rewritten with a few legal phrases and a smug smile from the woman who claimed she loved him. I stared at the last page of the will, at my father's looping signature. Mr. Harrison tapped the document gently. "This was signed and witnessed at our office," he said. "Everything is in order." Signed, witnessed. Those words would become very important later. But right then, all I saw was my stepmother gathering her purse, already acting like she owned the world. "I understand this is hard, Aaliyah," she said, brushing imaginary dust off her blazer. "But your father wanted to make sure things were secure. I'll make sure you're okay. Maybe you can keep working at the company if you behave." Behave. Like I was a child. Like I should be grateful she was letting me exist in a life my father built before she ever showed up. A hot, sharp anger rose in my chest, mixing with grief until I felt dizzy. I didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just about money. This was about truth, about power, and about one tiny detail Denise never imagined would matter, the one witness she overlooked. I left that law office with my dad's name stamped on a stack of copied pages and a hollow, echoing feeling in my chest. Outside, the Atlanta heat wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. Cars moved up and down Peachtree as if the world hadn't just shifted under my feet. Denise walked ahead of me in her heels, already on her phone. "Yes, baby, it went fine," she purred. "Yeah, the will's settled. I'll explain later." She didn't say my name once. In the parking lot, she stopped by my dad's black SUV, now her car, and turned to me. "Aaliyah," she said, voice smooth as syrup, "I know this is emotional, but your father trusted me to manage everything. You're still welcome to help at the company for now. We'll talk about arrangements." "Arrangements?" I repeated. "You mean my life?" Her smile flickered. "Don't be dramatic. You're not being kicked out into the street." "Yet," I muttered. Her eyes narrowed for a split second, and I saw it. The real Denise, sharp and calculating. Then the mask slid back into place. "You should take a few days," she said. "Grieve. I'll handle the logistics." "The logistics," I echoed. The word left a bitter taste in my mouth. She got into the SUV and shut the door. I stood there in that cracked parking lot, watching my father's car drive away, my reflection shrinking in the tinted glass as it turned the corner. I climbed into my old Honda and just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Texts from cousins, from my best friend Simone, from my Aunt Carla in Chicago. Aunt Carla's text stood out. "How did it go, baby? Did they read the will yet?" I swallowed hard and typed back slowly. She got everything. The house, the business, all of it. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. "That doesn't sound right. Call me. I didn't want to talk. If I said it out loud, it would become more real." But I called anyway. "Aaliyah." Her voice was warm and firm, that familiar Chicago edge. "Tell me exactly what happened." I took a breath and told her everything, from the conference room to Denise's fake comforting tone. When I mentioned the lawyer, Harrison, and how he said this was Dad's last will, she interrupted. "Did he mention when it was signed?" I frowned, trying to remember. "There was a date on the first page. I think 3 months ago." "3 months?" Aunt Carla repeated. "And when did your dad end up in the hospital that week with his blood pressure?" I stared through my windshield as the memory came back. Dad in the ER, his face pale, Denise pacing with her phone in her hand. "That was around that time," I said slowly. She kept saying he needed to get his affairs in order. "Aaliyah," she said, voice low now, serious. "You need to talk to another lawyer. Not his, not hers. Someone for you." "I don't have money for that," I whispered. "You have more at stake than money," she replied. "This is about your dad's wishes. You think he meant to leave you with nothing?" I closed my eyes. In my mind, I saw him at the kitchen table a year ago, flipping through a folder. "I need to update some paperwork," he'd said casually. "Nothing major, just making sure things are clear." "What about me?" I joked. "You leaving everything to some secret family I don't know about?" He'd laughed, that deep, warm laugh that shook his shoulders. "Girl, please, you know ain't nobody coming before you. I just gotta make sure things are done right." The memory hit me like a punch. "No," I said quietly. "I don't think he meant to leave me with nothing." "Then fight," Aunt Carla said. "At least find out if you can." That night, back at the house, the shift in power was impossible to ignore. My mother's old quilt, which I'd kept folded at the foot of the guest bed, was gone. The framed picture of me and Dad at my college graduation that used to sit on the mantel was replaced with a photo of Denise and Dad on a yacht, champagne in hand. I found the graduation picture face down in a drawer. In the kitchen, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and expensive candles. Denise was at the island with her laptop open, talking about liquidating assets on speakerphone with someone named Marcus. When she saw me, she hit mute. "You okay?" she asked, that fake concern back. "Where's Mom's quilt?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "The quilt, the one with the blue squares. It's gone." "Oh," she said, waving a hand. "I donated some things. The house is full of old stuff. We need to make space." "Old stuff?" I repeated, my voice rising. "That was my mother's." She rolled her eyes. "Aaliyah, please don't start. We're both grieving. I'm trying to keep this place from falling apart, and you're worried about an old blanket?" "It's not just a blanket," I snapped. "That's enough," she said sharply. "You don't speak to me like that in my house." My house. I felt the room tilt. I didn't trust my voice anymore, so I just turned and walked out, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors my dad had installed with his own hands. In my room, I shut the door and slid down against it, my chest heaving. I didn't know who to trust anymore, but one thing was clear. Staying silent was exactly what Denise wanted. The next morning, I called a law firm I found online, Henderson and Blake Probate and Estate Litigation. Their office was downtown, in a glass building that looked like it touched the clouds. I made an appointment for later that afternoon. When I walked into their lobby, I felt underdressed in my black jeans and simple blouse, surrounded by people in tailored suits. A receptionist with box braids and kind eyes greeted me. "Hi, welcome. Do you have an appointment?" "Yes," I said. "With Attorney Blake, I'm Aaliyah Carter." Her eyebrows lifted slightly at my last name, but she typed it in and nodded. "Have a seat, Ms. Carter. He'll be right with you." A few minutes later, I was ushered into a conference room, smaller than Harrison's, less polished, but somehow more honest. Attorney Blake was a black man in his 40s, with a trimmed beard and a calm, steady gaze. He shook my hand firmly. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said. "Tell me what's going on." I unfolded the copies of the will and slid them across the table. "My father always told me I'd inherit the house and the business. Then he married Denise. Now this says everything is hers." He read in silence for a moment, flipping through the pages. "When was this signed?" he asked. 3 months ago," I said, "around the time he was in and out of the hospital. Blood pressure spikes, chest pain, he was on medication, stressed about the business." Blake nodded slowly. "Okay, in Georgia, for a will to be valid, the person signing it, the testator, has to be of sound mind and not under undue influence. There also have to be at least 2 witnesses, plus usually a notary for the self-proving affidavit." He tapped the last page. "Here," he said. "Your father's signature, 2 witnesses, and the notary." I leaned forward. There they were, 3 names under my dad's signature. Witness number 1, Brian Mercer. Witness number 2, Kayla Thomas. Notary, Sharon Wilkes. "Do you know any of these people?" he asked. "No," I said. "I've never heard those names in my life." He nodded again, thoughtful. "That's not unusual. Often the law office staff act as witnesses. What concerns me is the timing. If your father was sick, on medication, and under stress, and his new wife was actively pushing him to change his estate plan, there may be grounds to contest the will. Undue influence, lack of capacity. But we'd need evidence." "Evidence," I repeated. It felt huge and heavy. "Like what?" "Medical records from around that time," he said. "Any emails, texts, notes where he talked about his intentions. Witnesses who can testify about his mental state." And he paused, tapping the witness names again. "Sometimes people talk. A receptionist, a paralegal, a notary. Someone might remember how this actually went down." A tiny spark lit in my chest. "You're saying someone in that office might know something?" "It's possible," he said. "If, for example, your stepmother drafted something and pressured him to sign without fully understanding, Sometimes staff notice. They can become key witnesses. The words echoed in my head. Key witnesses. The problem, he continued, is that contesting a will isn't cheap, and it can get ugly. But if what you're telling me is true, your father's estate is substantial. It might be worth fighting for, not just for the money, but to honor his real intentions. I swallowed. If I do nothing, then the will stands, he said simply. Your stepmother keeps everything, the house, the business, all of it. I stared at the table, my jaw clenched. The image of Denise throwing away my mother's quilt flashed through my mind. I want to fight, I said quietly. Even if I lose. I can't just let her rewrite my father's life like this. He gave a single approving nod. Okay, then our first step is to file a caveat, a formal objection, to the will in probate court before it's fully accepted. That buys us time. After that, we start digging. Digging how? Subpoenaing records, he said. Requesting your father's medical files from that period. And his mouth curved into the faintest hint of a smile. I'll be having a conversation with Mr. Harrison's staff. Sometimes the truth leaks out in the smallest details. As I left his office, the sky outside was turning pink over the skyline. For the first time since my dad died, I felt something other than grief and helplessness. I felt purpose. Denise thought she'd closed every door, tied up every loose end. She forgot one thing. Every signature has eyes on it. Every lie leaves a trace. Every scheme has a weak link. And somewhere in that fancy Buckhead office, there was a person who saw something they weren't supposed to. One witness she never expected would matter. I had no idea things would get worse before they got better. The next morning, I woke up with a tightness in my chest. Not grief this time, but determination. My father taught me that when someone pushes you down, you stand up twice as strong. I wasn't about to let Denise erase me like I was some inconvenience. I drove to the company early, before Denise usually swept in wearing heels and perfume, strong enough to knock out a small animal. The warehouse smelled like diesel and cold metal, familiar and grounding. The crew nodded at me, some with sympathetic eyes, some confused, some just tired. Dad had always been the heartbeat of this place. Without him, the air felt off balance. Inside the office, the blinds were half open, dust floating in sunbeams. For a moment, I just stood there, touching Dad's old desk, the scratches from where he'd dropped his wrench, the coffee stain he always covered with paperwork, the dent from where he'd slammed his fist in frustration during a bad quarter. This place was him, and she wanted to take it away. I powered on his computer. The login screen glowed blue. Password, JCSANDRA1. My breath caught. He'd never changed it. It still honored my mother. I shouldn't have cried, but I did. Quietly. Quickly. Then I wiped my face and opened his folders. Invoices, contracts, payroll. Everything looked normal until I found an email thread between Dad and Harrison, the same lawyer who'd read the will. The subject line, draft review, please confirm. But the thread was empty, completely blank, all deleted. My heartbeat stumbled. Dad rarely deleted emails, especially not legal ones. Something wasn't right. Footsteps echoed in the hall. I closed the window fast. Denise walked in wearing a red jumpsuit and oversized sunglasses, indoors. She looked at me like I was trespassing. "Oh, you're here early," she said, tone flat. "I work here," I replied. "Remember?" She slid off her glasses. "For now." I ignored the sting. "Did you know Dad had emails with Harrison?" Her expression tightened, but only slightly. "He worked with an attorney. That's normal, Aaliyah." "Did you read the emails?" Her smile was too smooth. "Of course not. That was your father's business." Lies. I could feel it. Before I could push further, her phone rang. "Hello? Yes, Marcus, baby, I'm heading to the bank now." I froze. Bank? Money drains after death? Too fast, too deliberate. She walked into Dad's old office, her office now, and shut the door. Something in me snapped. I couldn't wait around anymore. I needed answers. Real ones. That afternoon, Attorney Blake called. "Aaliyah, I have something." I held my breath. "What is it?" He exhaled slowly. "I pulled the initial probate filing Mr. Harrison submitted. There's a sworn statement attached. The will was supposedly signed in his office at 3:15 p.m. on May 18th, with both witnesses present." My stomach twisted. May 18th. "That can't be right," I whispered. My dad was in the hospital that afternoon. He didn't get discharged until the next morning. Silence. Then, "Are you sure?" "I was there," I said. "He was hooked to monitors for almost 12 hours straight." "Then the will might be fraudulent," Blake said. "Or at least improperly executed." My hands shook. "What do we do?" "I'll file the caveat today," he said. "After that, we start building a case. We need proof he couldn't have signed on May 18th. "I can get the hospital records," I said. "Denise won't stop me." He hesitated. "There's more." I called Harrison's office and asked to speak with the witnesses. They said one of them doesn't work there anymore. "Which one?" "Kayla Thomas." I scribbled the name on a notepad. Kayla Thomas. The second witness on Dad's will. "She left the firm suddenly a month ago," Blake continued. "No forwarding address, no phone number." "Do you think Denise?" "I don't know," he said carefully, "but witnesses don't normally vanish. If we can find her, she might tell us what really happened." That tiny spark inside me became a flame. "Then I'll find her," I said. "Whatever it takes." That evening, I went to my Aunt Carla's sister friend Naomi, who worked as a nurse at Grady Memorial, the same ER my father went to that day. When I told her what happened, she shook her head slowly. "Whew, baby, people get bold when money's involved." She pulled up the old hospital logs. And there it was, Jonathan Carter, admitted May 18th, 2:58 p.m. Vital signs unstable, under observation until the next morning. He couldn't have been signing anything at 3:15 p.m. across town. Naomi printed everything. Take it, if she really rewrote that will behind his back, you make sure she pays. Her words made my chest tighten. "Oh, she will," I murmured. "She really will." When I got home, the house was lit but quiet. Denise wasn't in the living room or kitchen. Then I heard voices, hers and a man's. "Don't panic," a male voice said. "If she contests it, we'll handle it." "I told you she wouldn't just go away," Denise snapped. "That girl is stubborn." "You said she wouldn't fight," the man replied. "You said she trusted you." "I thought she did," Denise hissed. "But she's digging. She went to another lawyer." My blood froze. They were talking about me. I inched closer, standing just outside the half-closed door to the home office. The man spoke again, low and tense. "Look, the will is clean enough, as long as nobody starts pulling witnesses." My heartbeat slammed. Witnesses. Kayla, the missing woman. Denise cut him off. "I handled them. Brian's loyal, and Kayla moved out of state. She won't be a problem." I slapped a hand over my mouth. "So she did push Kayla out." The man asked, "Did Jonathan ever say anything about his daughter inheriting?" A pause. Then a cold laugh from Denise. "He said a lot of things. I made sure the papers said something else." My knees went weak. Dad trusted her. And she twisted that trust like a knife. I stepped back too fast. The floor creaked. Sudden silence inside. Then, "Aaliyah?" Denise's voice sharpened. "Is that you?" I backed away from the door, heart pounding. "I just got home," I called casually. "Didn't know you were on a call." The door opened. Denise peeked out, eyes narrowed but smiling. "Oh, it's you." The man in the room couldn't be seen, but I saw his shadow. "You're home early," she said. I held up a bag. "Naomi asked me to drop something off." She nodded slowly, studying my face like she could pry open my skull and read my thoughts. "Well," she said brightly, "I'm making dinner. You hungry?" "No," I said quickly. She vanished back into the office, closing the door behind her. I went straight to my room, shut the door, and pressed my back against it in the dark. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Denise hadn't just erased me from the will. She orchestrated it. She pressured my dad. She manipulated the signing. She forced a witness out of town, and now I had proof: medical records, overheard conversations, inconsistencies, lies. But I still needed the missing witness, Kayla Thomas. The one Denise thought would never be found. She was wrong. Because next, I was going to find the one woman who knew exactly what happened the day my father supposedly signed that will. And once I did, everything would fall apart for Denise. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard their voices again. As long as nobody starts pulling witnesses. Kayla moved out of state. My stomach twisted with anger. But beneath that anger, something darker pulsed. Fear. What if I couldn't find her? What if Denise had scared her so badly she'd never talk? What if the will stood and my father's entire legacy slipped out of my hands forever? At 6 a.m., the sun barely up, I sat at my desk with a notebook and wrote 3 words in the center: "Find Kayla Thomas." I circled it twice. Then I started digging. The first lead came from something small, so small I almost missed it. On the will copy, under Kayla's printed name, I noticed a smudge. At first I thought it was just scanner ink, but when I zoomed in with my phone camera, I saw the faintest curve of a company logo. Harrison and Cole, Buckhead office. It clicked. She worked there, which meant someone at that office knew where she'd gone. I called Attorney Blake. "I'm going to the Buckhead office today," I said. "Harrison's firm." "Good," he replied. "Ask questions carefully. Don't accuse anyone, just listen." "I can do that." "And Aaliyah?" "Yeah?" "Be prepared for them to shut down. If Denise pressured staff, there might be fear in that office." Fear. Like the kind I heard in those whispered conversations. By 10 a.m., I was in the elevator riding up to Harrison's 14th floor office. My palms were damp, but my spine was straight. If Denise could manipulate my father, push people around, erase me, then she could handle me showing up. The reception area was all polished marble and glass, too cold and too clean. The receptionist looked up, polite but distant. "Good morning. Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm looking for someone who used to work here, Kayla Thomas." Her expression flickered, something between recognition and hesitation. "She no longer works for us." "I know. That's why I'm asking." The woman swallowed. Is this about the Carter matter?" I froze. She knew exactly who I was. I leaned in slightly. "Did something happen with the will?" She shifted in her chair, her eyes darting toward the closed hallway behind her. I'm not allowed to discuss internal affairs." The way she said internal affairs told me everything. There were internal affairs. "Look," I whispered softly, "my father didn't sign that will, not on that date. And you know it." Her jaw tightened. For a split second, guilt washed over her face. Then a voice rang out behind us. "Miss Carter!" I whipped around. Mr. Harrison himself walked toward me, adjusting his tie like he owned the air around him. "We need to talk," he said. "Privately." The receptionist kept her eyes down, frozen. I followed Harrison into a glass-walled office. The moment the door shut, his polite mask fell away. "I strongly advise you to stop visiting my office without counsel present," he said coldly. I folded my arms. "Then produce Kayla." "Where is she?" He blinked once. "Former staff are not public information." "So you do know where she is?" "I didn't say that," he said, voice clipped. But you didn't deny it, I shot back. His jaw flexed. Aaliyah, I understand emotions are high after a loss. I'm sorry, but the will stands. Your father signed it voluntarily, consciously, and legally. He was in the hospital that day, I said. I have the records. Something cracked in his expression. Not surprise, annoyance. As if I had become a problem he didn't expect. I'm done with this conversation, he said, reaching for the door. I'm not, I said sharply. Tell me where Kayla went or I'll subpoena every staff member in this building. He froze, hand on the doorknob. A slow, icy smile spread across his lips. Then I suppose, he said, you'd better hire a very good lawyer. He walked out. I exhaled hard. For a moment, doubt washed over me. What if he buried everything? What if Kayla never came back? But then I remembered Denise laughing about my father's wishes, like they were meaningless. Remembered her throwing away my mother's quilt. Remembered her telling me to behave. No, I wasn't giving up. Back downstairs, the receptionist slipped me a tiny folded note as she handed me my parking ticket. Her hand shook slightly. For you, she whispered. I didn't open it until I got to my car. Inside, in rushed handwriting, were 6 words. Check Augusta. Last week. Be careful. My heart leapt. Kayla wasn't out of reach, just out of Atlanta. Augusta was only 2 hours away. I grabbed my steering wheel, adrenaline buzzing through me. This was it, the lead I needed. I texted Blake immediately. I have a location. Augusta. I'm going today. He responded almost instantly. Don't confront her aggressively. Just listen. And call me if anything feels off. The highway stretched ahead of me in long, relentless lines. My mind replayed every conversation, every lie, every red flag I ignored from Denise. When I pulled up to the address on the note, a quiet apartment complex with peeling paint, I felt my pulse hammering in my throat. Apartment 2B, second floor. I climbed the stairs slowly. Knocked once, twice. No answer. I was about to turn away when the door cracked open an inch. A young black woman with tired eyes peeked out. Yes, she whispered. Are you Kayla? Her eyes widened in fear. She tried to shut the door, but I stopped it gently with my hand. I'm not here to hurt you, I said softly. I'm not with Denise. I'm Jonathan Carter's daughter. Her breath hitched. Silence stretched between us. Then she opened the door all the way. Come inside, she whispered. Please, before someone sees. I stepped in. The apartment was small, cluttered, and dimly lit, like someone had moved fast and never settled. Kayla sat on the couch, wringing her hands. You shouldn't be here, she said. If she finds out I talked to you. She already ruined my life, I said gently. I'm just trying to get the truth. Kayla looked at me for a long time. Her eyes filled. Then quietly, she said the words that changed everything. Aaliyah, your father didn't sign that will. My world tilted. She continued, voice trembling. I was there. I saw everything, and I've been scared ever since. I swallowed hard. What happened? She took a shaky breath. It wasn't your father's real signature. He wasn't even in the office that day. He never came in. Denise did. My blood went cold. She brought a document, Kayla whispered. She said he approved it at home and just needed the paperwork finalized. Harrison told us to witness it anyway. I froze. Kayla wiped her cheek. I didn't know it was wrong until later. When I found out your father died the next month, I quit the same day. I packed up and left town because I didn't feel safe anymore. I leaned forward. Kayla, will you testify? She hesitated. Fear flickered in her eyes. Then she nodded, slowly. Yes, I'll do the right thing. I'll tell the truth. I exhaled shakily, relief flooding through me. This was the witness, the one piece Denise never expected would come back. But as I stood to leave, Kayla grabbed my arm. "Aaliyah!" she whispered urgently. "You need to be careful." Why? She swallowed hard. Because Denise wasn't working alone, and the other person, they're dangerous. A chill hit me so hard I staggered. Dangerous? Who? The shadow in the office? Marcus? Someone tied to money? Kayla shook her head. "I don't know how far they'll go to protect that will, but whatever you think this is," she looked straight into my eyes, "it's bigger." I had no idea just how big, but I was about to find out, and the truth would shake everything. Kayla's warning rattled around in my head the entire drive back from Augusta. She wasn't working alone. They're dangerous. The way she said dangerous made the hairs on my arms stand up. This wasn't just some greedy stepmother situation anymore. There was another layer. Someone behind the scenes. Someone helping her cheat my father, erase me, and cover their tracks. But who? As the Atlanta skyline came back into view, something heavy settled in my chest. I needed answers. Fast. And I wasn't going to wait for them to fall into my lap. The next morning, I met Attorney Blake at his downtown office. He was reviewing Kayla's signed statement, shaking his head like he couldn't believe what he was reading. "This is huge," he said, placing the papers flat on the table. "Her testimony, combined with your father's hospital records, gives us grounds not just to contest the will." He looked up at me with a grave seriousness. "But to have it thrown out entirely." My breath caught. "Then everything goes back to the previous will?" "Yes," he said. "The one that names you as the primary heir, and the business stays yours." A warmth bloomed in my chest. Not happiness. Something fiercer. Vindication. "But we're not done," Blake continued. "Kayla mentioned another party, someone who pressured her, someone tied to your stepmother." I nodded slowly. "She said she didn't know much, just that it wasn't only Denise." He tapped his pen on the table. "The man you heard on the phone. That could be our second link." A thought hit me like a punch. "Marcus." "Who is he?" Blake asked. I swallowed. "I don't know. Denise kept saying his name. Marcus baby." "I'm heading to the bank now, Marcus." "He's definitely someone she trusts." Blake leaned back in his chair. "Then let's find out who Marcus is." The answer came quicker than I expected. That afternoon, I went to the company, my father's company, to check old records. If Denise was using company money or meeting someone connected to Dad, the evidence would be somewhere. While digging through old vendor files, I found a name that made my stomach twist. Marcus Hall Independent Business Consultant. Next to his name were invoices, recent ones, signed by Denise. $12,000, $18,000, $25,000. Payments for advisory services. Services my father never approved. But that wasn't the worst part. On the final invoice, printed faintly at the bottom, was a company name, Hall and Wilkes Holdings. My heart dropped. Wilkes, the same last name as the notary who supposedly notarized my father's signature. Sharon Wilkes. A chill rushed through me. I grabbed the invoice and drove straight to Blake's office. He scanned the page, eyebrows shooting up. "This is it," he said. "This is the missing link." "Explain," I demanded, breath shaking. "Marcus Hall," he said, tapping the name, "is tied to the notary, Sharon Wilkes. She's either his sister or wife, same address listed." My pulse pounded. And if the notary was connected to the man Denise was secretly paying? "Then the notarization is compromised," he finished. "And if the notarization is compromised, the entire will collapses." It felt like lightning cracked through my chest. Every lie, every twisted manipulation, every cruel smile Denise had given me was about to unravel. "We file immediately," Blake said. "The probate court will schedule an emergency hearing once they see this evidence." I nodded, adrenaline flooding me. I want to be there. Every second of it. You will, he promised. The hearing was set for 3 days later. 3 days of tense silence in the house. Denise acted like nothing was wrong. She floated around the kitchen humming, wearing silk robes, lighting candles, planning renovations to my family home. But her eyes kept flicking toward the door every time my phone buzzed. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know how bad. The morning of the hearing, she tried to block my way at the door. "Where are you going dressed like that?" she asked. I looked down at my black blouse and slacks. Court. Her face drained a shade. "What? Why?" "For my father," I said simply. "For the truth." She grabbed my arm. "You don't know what you're starting." I yanked it away. "No, Denise, you started this." I walked out. She didn't follow. The courtroom was small but heavy with tension. Dark wood, high ceilings. A judge who looked like she'd seen every lie in the book. Denise arrived late, wearing a white suit and fake tears. Marcus was with her. A small, wiry man with shaded eyes and a jaw that clenched whenever he looked at me. He didn't know I had him cornered. Not yet. When the hearing began, Blake presented everything. The hospital records, the suspicious invoices, the connection between Marcus and the notary, and finally, "Your Honor," Blake said, "we have a sworn statement from one of the original witnesses, Kayla Thomas." A ripple moved through the courtroom. Denise stiffened. Marcus's jaw locked. Blake continued reading. "Kayla Thomas testifies that Jonathan Carter was not present during the signing. She states that the will was brought in by Mrs. Denise Carter, and that staff were instructed to sign as if Jonathan had been there." The judge looked over her glasses at Denise. "Mrs. Carter, is that true?" Denise swallowed hard. "Absolutely not, Your Honor. I would never. I loved my husband." Marcus leaned forward, whispering something urgently to her. The judge held up a hand. "Save the theatrics." Then she turned to the bailiff. "Is Ms. Kayla Thomas present?" My heart stopped. The doors opened. Kayla walked in, eyes forward, shoulders trembling but strong. Denise's face twisted in pure panic. "Kayla! Kayla, what are you doing?" Kayla didn't even look at her. She went straight to the stand. And in a voice shaking but brave, she told everything. How Harrison pressured them, how Denise brought the documents, how the signature wasn't my father's, how she was pushed out of her job the moment she hesitated. When she finished, the room was silent. The judge leaned forward, voice firm and final. "This will is invalid, completely void." Denise gasped. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. The judge continued. "The estate will revert to the previous valid will, leaving all assets to Ms. Aaliyah Carter." My breath broke. Tears streamed down my face before I could stop them. Denise stood, shaking with rage. "This isn't fair. I deserve—" The judge cut her off sharply. "You deserve nothing obtained through fraud." Bailiffs approached Marcus. The judge nodded toward him. "Mr. Hall will be held for questioning regarding fraudulent notarization and financial misconduct." He tried to run. They grabbed him instantly. The courtroom erupted into noise, shouts, whispers, chaos. I stood frozen, relieved, stunned, shaking, until Blake touched my shoulder gently. "You did it," he said. "Your father would be proud." I nodded, tears silently falling. And for the first time since my father died, I felt him with me. That night I stood alone in the house. My house. The air felt lighter. The walls felt warmer. I went to the attic and pulled out my mother's quilt, the one Denise tried to erase. I spread it on my bed, running my fingers over every stitch. Then I whispered, "It's ours again, Mama." From downstairs, I heard the front door slam. It was Denise, dragging suitcases, sobbing and furious. She didn't speak to me. She didn't look at me. She just left. The house was silent when the door clicked shut. Peaceful, finally mine. I sat on the couch, exhaling deeply. Justice wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the pain, but it restored what mattered: my father's legacy, my mother's memory, my place in this world. And Denise? She would spend years picking up the pieces of the life she tried to steal. As for me, I rebuilt, I rose, and I never let anyone erase me again. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch the next story. It's even more unbelievable.